In today's episode, I want to look at Candace Owens and track the unwell, deranged narrative that she has, I want to say, carefully crafted around Charlie Kirk's death, but I don't even know if it's careful. And the only reason why I'm talking about this is not because I want to give Candace Owens any more attention than what she's gained or the popularity in which she's grown, but it's because so many conservatives actually believe Candace or think she's being brave. I first want to speak out on this idea that has been prevalent over the last few months since Charlie Kirk's assassination, which is that Candace Owens is such a good friend to Charlie Kirk. And thank God she's the one asking questions because no one else is fighting for Charlie. Candace Owens, singularly, within 24 hours of her close best friend, brother, whatever she wants to call him's assassination, published a video which included a paid promotion, a paid ad. So the fact that she's also getting paid and sponsored to create this chaos around her best friend's death should be telling to her average viewer, but apparently that doesn't raise any alarm bells. She suggested in that video, in which she showed photos of her and her best friend that date back to like 2016. If you look at Candace's feed, if you look at the photos of her and Charlie, there is no recent photos that date back within, I would even say, the last 4 years of them hanging out. A lot of the photos or videos that she's pushing is probably from 2016, 2017, 2018, pre-2020, pre her time at PragerU. This is when she was still with TPUSA. So they were not close friends in any recent timeline. And I think what we're seeing is someone who is greatly jealous of Charlie Kirk because he grew an empire that far outshone Candace Owens. They did have some sort of a falling out, and individuals within TPUSA who were closest to Charlie confirmed that they were not close friends at the time of his assassination, nor within the many years prior to his assassination. So that fact should raise some alarm bells for people, but it hasn't. You still have people who insist that Candace Owens is just the best friend in the whole world for fighting for truth for Charlie. Over the last 2 months, she has now become the #1 podcast in the world. This was the first time she introduced the idea that Israel took out Charlie Kirk because he was going to convert to Catholicism and because that was shifting his view on being pro-Israel. We're going to look at all the actors she's blamed for Charlie's death, but let's just look at this clip because this was the first time she talked about Charlie Kirk's death.
Of course, he was by my side, when I got married to George. And of course, Charlie fell in love with Erica. That entire journey to me when I was reading through a text is so funny because it was exceptional. I was always leaning into Charlie's analytical mind and making fun of him. Like, oh, well, all we need to do is get a plan. You love Erica? Okay, what's the plan? What are we going to do? What's step 1? What's step 2? And the plan that I came up with instantly was all we have to do is convince her that her last name is terrible. Her last name, she's got to marry you because it's practical. Kirk is going to...
So she's even taking credit for Charlie and Erica getting married. Like it was her plan. The narcissism was oozing out of Candace's mouth from the first video.
Mrs. Erica Kirk sounds so much better than Miss Erica Francie. What is that last name? It's a practical decision. This is the text chain from that. Charlie and Erica Kirk. He says it's going to be the power couple of a century. I need to continue to pray about it. I said, her last name's dumb. She literally needs you to propose. It's way too complicated. He said, I'm going to tell her it sounds like a sneeze. It's horrible. And then I wrote, marry me. It's a logistics thing. That's just who is important. Never for a single minute, ever, did Charlie and I stop being friends. Even when the world demanded that from both of us, our relationship was real. We were brother and sister. We were fortified. Our relationship was forged in fire, the fire of politics. I knew him. I knew Charlie, the real Charlie. And Charlie knew the real Candace, and people knew I didn't like a lot of people in politics. I didn't like a lot of people calling me and doing the political dance. Of course, people guessed it correctly when they said, oh, the person who probably was the intermediary when Trump called about Brigitte was Charlie Kirk. Of course it was Charlie. They would never send anybody else to call me.
Because Charlie was staging an intervention. And again, look at all these these pictures in the video are all from years and years and years ago.
That were wrong. And we laughed at how wrong it was when people thought that when I had made up my mind about Israel, that Charlie and me fell apart. Nope, never, not for a second. I said, it's the easiest decision ever because Charlie knew who I was and I knew who he was. I said, Charlie, this is where I'm at and there's no room for movement. and you tell your whoever that needs to hear it, whatever you need to tell them, because we're always going to be brothers and sisters, you know? We're always going to be brother and sister. And we would talk about things and debate things behind the scenes. And I think my perspective was as it's been throughout our relationship. You might not get it now, Charlie, but you will. I'm only a few years older than you, but
the narcissism of you will.
And I think
here we go.
I think in the end, Charlie was going through a spiritual transformation. I don't think it, I know it. He was going through a lot, and there was a lot of pressure. And it's hard for me to watch the people who were pressuring him, I don't know, just say the things that they're saying. You know, there's something about it that just feels really fake to me. And they would have.
Candace calling other people fake for what they're saying about Charlie is so insane to me.
Allowed him to lose and wanted him to lose everything for changing or even slightly modifying an opinion, and then to see them doing what they're doing today, it's hurtful to me. It's very hurtful to me. But I don't want today to be about anything other than you guys knowing that Charlie really was an amazing person. You know, he was.
The alligator tears are just so icky to me. She's like squinting hard so that she can cry.
And my brother. And I will never unsee the footage of what I saw, the violence of it. I pray for the people who took any pleasure in that. There's not a single person in the world that I would wish that on. And
so that was the first video she ever made. I just think it's so disgusting and sick. And she has not let the world forget about Charlie, but she has absolutely trashed the reputation of the closest people around him. She tweeted that everyone betrayed Charlie, and then in a separate tweet she also tweeted that Erica knows everything. She did say that Erica Kirk, the wife, is off limits, but Erica Kirk, the CEO of Turning Point, is not. She is anything but a loyal friend. She is narcissistic. This is a ploy for power and influence. And we can see that perfectly displayed by the fact that Candace has made, I believe, over 32 episodes on Charlie Kirk, which is what catapulted her into the top podcasting slot, in which she has accused literally the FBI of being part of a cover-up, the government of Egypt, the government of Israel, and now the government of France. This is a multi-state operation to not just kill Charlie, but to now kill Candace herself. There's this YouTube channel called Chicks on the Right, and I think they're great. I want to read the tweet they shared, trying to summarize what Candace followers believe per the narrative that she has peddled about Charlie Kirk's death. They tweeted, "Going to try to pretend for a moment that all of Candace's theories make sense. Let me see if I have this right. Evil psychopaths within shadow governments, or even not so shadow, all got together to create a plan to murder Charlie Kirk because he was abandoning the pro-Israel cause. But also, they started using Egyptian planes to track Erica for 3 years prior to Charlie deciding to abandon the pro-Israel cause because ... reasons. And not only were they able to coordinate a plot with multiple people across multiple countries, but they convinced our FBI, the local law enforcement officials in Utah, and Charlie's best friends and his pastors to agree to murder him to cover it up so that Erica could become CEO. This is what sounds reasonable to the Candy cult. Then they found some loser named Tyler with a transferee partner to use as the person the world would believe fired the shot at Charlie. And they convinced that loser's parents to agree to allow their son to be used as a patsy and turn him in. They, and we have no idea who they even is because it's constantly shifting, although it's inferred like the CIA, the neocons, the Jews, made up all of the texts in which Tyler admitted to the crime. Tyler's parents were totally down with this plan because reasons. They decided to use a weapon that would create the most amount of internet sleuths questioning how a 30-06 could not result in an exit wound, even though the same thing happened to MLK Jr. Throw in some Mormon bees or something, and this is what Candace followers actually believe. Y'all. Crying, laughing emoji. Okay, well, it gets even worse because since November 21st, Candace Owens is now claiming that the French government has hired assassins to kill her, and it's part of a multi-country plot, including Israel and also the United States, because she was going to expose how Brigitte Macron was connected to MK and then that also meant that they had to kill Charlie Kirk, but they're also after her. And there are people who believe that Candace Owens has ascertained this information for her assassination, and that these high-level operators within some of the most efficient intelligence agencies in the world, including Israel, so Mossad, were unable to keep their plot from Candace Owens, the super sleuth that she is. Nathan Livingston tweeted, "Take a moment to appreciate how insane Candace Owens' theory is. Candace is claiming she stumbled upon an MK Ultra program that turns serial killers into Manchurian candidates. She says this ties into the Macrons and that the Macrons accidentally gave the game away by repeatedly referencing MK Ultra in their lawsuit against her, and to Brigitte, who Candace believes is her brother, Jean-Michel Trogneau, a psychopath who she claims had a 50-50 chance of being part of the Stanford prison experiment in 1971, something she insists she was just about to prove on her show before Charlie Kirk was killed." And so that this is somehow part of the motivation for Charlie being killed, although she's also made the claim that Charlie was killed because he was going to change his stance on Israel and that everyone in his life betrayed him in order to make Erica Kirk the CEO of Turning Point USA. So according to her, it appears Kirk was killed to throw Candace off the trail she was on. But she's such a good investigator that she managed to tie Kirk's death back to the Macrons. The motives for his assassination continue to shift. The actors involved continue to shift and expand. And she tries to maintain the lies that she's peddled in the past to the lies she continues to put forth. So she's now saying that both Israel and France is working together in order to kill not just Charlie, but now go after Candace. And that's why, according to her, they now need to deploy assassins to take her out because she's so close to exposing it all. Or it's as simple as this. Candace launched a campaign of harassment against the Macrons, repeatedly spreading debunked lies about Brigitte Macron being a man and repeatedly insinuating that both Macrons were connected to MK Ultra, for which she is now being sued. Her investigation into Brigitte being in the Stanford prison experiment was complete nonsense. Just see where the investigation left off below. Charlie Kirk was killed by the person who confessed to it, and all available evidence supports that. The massive global conspiracy involving untold people, resources, and diplomacy for which zero evidence exists is just the latest grift from an attention-seeking podcaster, I would say an unwell, narcissistic, schizophrenic, or bipolar podcaster. I'm just speculating. I can't diagnose her, but this is a very unwell, paranoid rant she's been going on the last 2 months with a long history of telling lies who's beginning to pay for them. I hope that the Macrons expand their lawsuit against Candace Owens for not only the defamation surrounding accusations of Brigitte Macron's transgenderism, which even if it's true, why do you care, Candace? Why are you going to go on this almost year-long crusade against the Macrons, but then also the defamation of them being connected to MK Ultra, and then now the accusation that they are trying to kill her. Let's watch the clip that Milk Bar TV put together.
We were getting very close to something as we had started on September 8th, by the way, our Becoming Brigitte season 2. And we were looking at how unusual it was that a dog was barking a bit too loud. A thief that nobody was pursuing was running. And that was us discussing the MK Ultra program and Brigitte Macron strangely and Emmanuel mentioning MK Ultra in the lawsuit to us 18 times struck us as odd. Speaking of MK Ultra, first book we're going to be reading is Chaos, because it is we should learn a bit about the CIA and the secret history of the 60s, and some of those themes may be relevant as we go along with this series. Brigitte Macron was born. It's also the same day that the CIA's MK Ultra program was born. Emmanuel Macron spent a ton of time isolated throughout his childhood. Just off the bat, his father, Jean-Michel Macron, was a psychiatrist. And yes, of course, we know for a fact that psychiatrists have done some evil things. And then also recognize that the majority of the documents pertaining to that program were destroyed. So we don't know just how global that program went, as we were trying to determine whether or not it could have been Brigitte Macron that was involved in that Stanford experiment, this prisoner, 2093. And what really terrifies me is that if my inclination that Xavier Poussard's messages have been being read and tracked for longer than I even realized. And that's the reason they initially sent that cease and desist in December, was to ward me off sitting down with Xavier Poussard. Then what we hadn't yet presented to the audience, but what we were investigating on the back end, if they were aware of that, it really makes me wonder if we were on the right track. And it was something that was so sinister, you know, involving maybe another step of the MK Ultra program being used to foster serial killers and to give serial killers new identities and allowing them to run in countries. That was kind of conversations that I was having in the background with Xavier. And we thought that we had perhaps identified Brigitte Macron at Stanford University, a possibility is what I would say. We were maybe at a 50-50%. If there is anything to know about Kabbalists, it's that the numbers matter deeply to them. Numerology is important. So I say to myself, the numbers of the prisoners, they cannot be random. They are random, but they can't be random. They have to hold some sort of a meaning. They're all over the place, right? Some of them are 3 digits. Some of them are 4 digits. There's no flow. Why would somebody do this? More than anything else, it's just difficult for you. If you're controlling this experiment, it's difficult to keep track of all of these numbers. When you just want to make somebody like 3, 4, 5, whatever it is. And then it hits me. Everything about this experiment is military. These numbers must be military. They must hold military significance. And lo and behold,
obsession with numbers and them having deeper meaning, I believe, is one of the diagnosable traits of someone with schizophrenia. This is an unwell person who is fixating on numbers that are completely irrelevant and then tying them to things that are completely irrelevant.
behold, the prisoner numbers just so happen to correspond to 1971 military bases. And I'm going to go through those for you guys right now. Doug Corpy's was 8612. That is the number that was assigned for the Naval Weapons Station in Long Beach, California. Incredible. That one took me a while to hack, because apparently when it's a medical center, a medical facility, they give them what's known as DMIS numbers. But again, Long Beach, California. Jerry Shue. We have Camp Pendleton, CA. That is, of course, also a naval base. Clipperton Island. Who knew? A naval base on Clipperton Island. First thing I'm thinking is, what the heck is Clipperton Island? I'm wondering if it's me. My husband then says he's never heard of Clipperton Island. And that's crazy, because my husband is the king of geography. Xavier Poussard says he's never heard of Clipperton Island. So let me show you this island that apparently not many people have heard of, that had a military naval base and presence. That is a French island. Check this out on the map. Yep, let's go in here. Clipperton. What the heck goes on at Clipperton Island? It's incredible. And then suddenly Charlie Kirk gets assassinated, and it totally throws us off of the scent entirely, because we're trying to figure out what happened to Charlie. And now, strangely, trying to figure out what happened to Charlie has brought us back to a France question. Right?
So crazy how the French killed Charlie with the help of Israel, because he was changing his mind on Israel, but also to distract Candace. Like, Candace actually believes that they killed Charlie Kirk to distract her, because they were going to predict she was going to go on a schizo rampage for 2 months to then distract her from her true mission of exposing Brigitte Macron as a man. Oh, and it involves Egyptian planes. So now let's take a look at the Egypt thing, because this is part of this multi-country narrative she's trying to paint. So Egypt's involved, Israel is involved, France is involved, our own governments from federal down to local governance is somehow involved or was convinced to be part of a cover-up and peddle the official narrative. And then also maybe we can throw in Canada, because there's a tweet we're going to look at where she claims that money for her assassination was being funneled through accounts in Canada to France to pay for the hit on her head. So this is an older tweet from about a week ago. She said, looks like another round of desperate and fake debunking regarding the Egyptian planes. These federally sponsored trends are so fun as they are predictable now. And I can tell you guys with absolute certainty, she can always say things with absolute certainty apparently because she has a source, that today I learned the federal government is in a panic about the mention of their joint DHS, FBI, and DEA office at 20 North King. The tip proved absolutely solid, and I was informed so. It is now a fact that a foreign dignitary was picked up after arriving from the Provo the morning of Charlie's assassination on the Egyptian plane, and then transferred to 920 King for some joint operation. And yes, despite the massive office space, there is nothing else in that building except a law firm and a place to eat. The law firm piece is an interesting side fact related to portions of the email that I chose not to read on air. Yet, stay tuned. I believe that the lawyer's office in this building was someone trolling Candace, and that this is the office of her lawyer. She then tweeted today, which I'm filming this on November 26, about the Egyptian planes. Someone directly involved in the booking process has confirmed to me that our Egyptians, so now they're not actually Egyptians, now it's just Egyptians. Because I even guessed in Candace's own internal monologue, she can't quite connect Egypt and Israel and France and the US and Canada all together. So now these are just Egyptians who flew into Provo ahead of Charlie Kirk's assassination. Were staying at the La Quinta Inn and Suites, specifically the University Parkway location. Remember, our Egyptians flew in on September 4th and stayed through September 13th. We are now looking for footage of these individuals. If you own a store nearby and can check cameras, or perhaps you work at La Quinta and you remember something odd, someone in Utah may hold the key to solving this. Please email more tips at CandaceOwens.com. Thanks to the help of her tip line, she's now been informed that there's an assassination plan on her life. And this was tweeted on November 22nd. She says, urgent. 2 days ago, I was contacted by a high-ranking employee of the French government. After determining this person's position and proximity to the French couple, meaning President Macron and his wife Brigitte, I have deemed the information they gave me to be credible enough to share publicly in the event that something happens. I hope that someone is just completely trolling her, like with the address to her own lawyer and her not noticing it and reporting it as a location for the joint operation in Charlie Kirk's assassination. I really hope someone is trolling her because pride comes before the fall and she deserves it. Okay. So she's deemed this information credible. In short, this person claims that the Macrons have executed upon and paid for my assassination. Yes, you read that correctly. More specifically, the green light was given to a small team in France. I am told there is one Israeli that is on this assassination squad, and the plans were formalized, of course, because there has to be a Jew. She has to tie Israel in somehow, and she also has to just, find the one Jew who's part of this assassination attempt. Again, this person provided concrete proof that they were well placed within the French government apparatus, because someone within President Macron's inner circle is going to betray President Macron and endanger themselves in order to warn Candace, the freedom fighter that she is. Okay. Again, this person provided concrete proof that they were placed within the French government apparatus. Further to this point, this person claims that Charlie Kirk's assassin trained with the French Legion 13th Brigade with multi-state involvement. Journalist Xavier Poussard's life is also at risk. This is deadly serious. The head of state of France apparently wants us both dead and has authorized professional units to carry this out. I ask that every person retweet and share this because I want as much popularity as I can get for this outrageous claim. But don't worry, 100,000 people reshared it on X and it got 43.5 million views. If you don't think she's doing this for attention, then again, you are a useful idiot in the cult of Candace. I do not know who in the American government can be trusted, since this source claims our leaders are aware. So now she's also saying that the United States is complicit in this assassination plot. But I have more specific information which is definitively verifiable, should they care to reach out to me. She's not going to release it. She's going to hold it close to her chest, but she has verifiable information. To the brave official in France who did this because they were so moved by the evil of Charlie's public execution to risk their own life, may God bless you truly. Let all be revealed. Okay. So this was released. So the day after she tweets there's an assassination attempt on her life, she doesn't go offline. She doesn't seek shelter or safety for her and her family. She continues to tweet. She says, "It is not a coincidence that the French legionaries were in the United States training with our Marines for 3 weeks. When those 3 weeks ended in California, another military training exercise began alongside civilians at Camp Riley in Minnesota. The French Foreign Legionaries were involved in Charlie Kirk's assassination, period." That's a claim. They were not the only ones, but they were involved because, of course, the Jews were involved, so there's also a connection to Israel here. She then also posts a screenshot of an AI overview from Google. It says, "In August 2025, U.S. Marines and French Foreign Legionaries from the 2nd Foreign Infantry Regiment trained together at the Marine Corps Air Ground Command Center in California as part of the service level training exercise. The exercise, which ran from August 4th to the 25th, focused on improving interoperability between the two allied forces through realistic scenarios like close quarter combat and urban terrain training." Newsflash, Candace, this is what allied forces do. In fact, the French are the United States' oldest allies. They helped us fight the British in the Revolutionary War. So is it weird that there was a joint training operation in California and then Minnesota, nowhere near Utah, around the time of Charlie Kirk's assassination? Well, I'm sure these joint training operations happen quite regularly. Talk about trying to connect something so random to Charlie Kirk's assassination. Let's watch a clip of all the times Candace has claimed that there is an assassination attempt on her life. Milk Bar TV posted this. He said this year alone, she claimed influencers were being paid to make attack videos about her, and she even offered a $10,000 reward for evidence. Nothing else to this was proved. She alleged that Emmanuel Macron had Donald Trump call her to tell her to stop talking about Brigitte Macron and suggested peace in Ukraine depended on it. No proof this even happened. She insinuated that Brigitte Macron's relatives were potentially killed to prevent them from testifying in a lawsuit involving her. Again, no proof was provided. And now she claims the French, with the help of the Israelis, aka the shadow elites, aka they, the Jews, have sent assassins after her, somehow linked to Charlie Kirk's death. But this time, she's telling the truth.
This person writes, "God bless you. Please be careful. Joan Rivers got killed for exposing Michelle Obama, the Hollywood secret." I appreciate that. I also know that if they want to kill you, they will. I mean, that's the truth, and that's a sad thing to say, but at least you'll know who did it. It was the Frankists. I just want to be clear. Anything happens to me, blame the Zionists. In a full year of plots against my family, and we have been in just warrior mode for so long, and I just can't even, they just won't even just let me enjoy an end of pregnancy. They're like, no, what else can we get? What else can we find? And like I said, her piece matched too much the most recent Zionist attack. There is a figurative bounty on my head. Apparently influencers making up to $1,000 to make anti-Candace and anti-Tucker Carlson videos. The people have given us names and said, this is the marketing campaign that's paying for this, or this is the organization foundation that offered me money for this. But you have to present concrete proof. Like, I obviously am aware that the campaign is happening, but we need to actually see the email. So you have to submit the email that you received or the text message that you received to make a video about Candace Owens. I just want to know who specifically is behind it, so we can out that person. 10K is now the bounty for that information. Send it to tips@CandaceOwens.com. Emmanuel Macron is holding up negotiations to end the Russian and Ukrainian war unless you stop speaking about his wife. But obviously, I don't want to have on my conscience that less Christian men could have died in the East if I just shut up about something. It kind of...
The narcissism, the delusion that she thinks negotiations for a war between Russia and Ukraine that's been going on for 3 years depends on if she will stop talking about if the president of France's wife is a transgender is so deranged.
Go back in my mind to that conversation, and I find myself wondering whether or not Trump was being directed by somebody to give me a call, and whether he was being honest with me, if it was really coming from him, if it was coming from higher up. You know, my general perspective is that we live in a nation that is governed by the military. So I don't necessarily believe that Trump is in control of things.
Remember the clip I showed you after Charlie Kirk's assassination that she recorded after that claim? She said, of course, it was Charlie who got the president to call me. So a month later, she was aware that it was Charlie who bridged that conversation. But the month prior to that claim, she said that she doesn't know who controls Trump, like some elite government entity. So which one is it? Was it Charlie or was it some corrupt elite? Because she made the claim about the corrupt elite and then said, oh, of course it was Charlie who had President Trump call me. Which one was it?
I can't see them wanting to make it to discovery. I just don't see that happening. I think they'll fake kill Brigitte first. But they'll be like, oh, Brigitte passed away from stress because of what Candace did. Oh, nobody can talk about her being a man anymore because Brigitte's gone. You know, this is terrible. The French press is reporting that Annie Trogneau died on July 3rd, and then was buried on the 15th in Amiens, and that Anne-Marie's daughter, Christine, died on July 19th, and then was buried on the 25th. So that was 2 days after my lawsuit. Anyways, take from that what you will. We're still investigating. Things are happening. Strange events are happening. It could be nothing. Who knows? It, of course, is interesting because, you know, had those two individuals have been alive, we may have liked to subpoena them, get a statement. I am telling you to back off right now. Like right now. Don't do it. Okay? Don't you think about it. I know exactly who you are. I know exactly who you were that were exerting pressure. Don't you pretend to be noble now and say nice things about Charlie Kirk and think you're going to slide into his chair. Okay? Over my dead body, which I'm sure can be arranged. They would rather protect Brigitte, even though the whole world no longer believes that Brigitte Macron was born a female, right? But they would rather risk the entire thing coming undone than to just say, okay, maybe we took it too far. Let's get Macron out of office and put somebody else in there that we can control. They are taking this way too far, okay? Killing people more is actually only going to catalyze the understanding that we're all having that there is something very dangerous, something deep and dark that is going on. So anyways, like I said, if I get killed, it's definitely Zionist. Like, what is this? What are you guys? None of this is real. How are you just coming up with these weird storylines?
Okay. Let's look at the last two tweets I have here just to follow the story so that it's up to date. In this tweet on the 23rd, so the day after she made the claim, she said, I have informed people in the federal government and the White House of the France and Israeli assassination plot, but I thought you made the claim that they were aware of this plot. So are they complicit, or did you have to tell them? And then how does the FBI get involved? Because they had to be convinced to cover up Charlie Kirk's assassination. So by that logic, the government should already be aware of this, but she had to inform them. Okay, got it. And willing to prove full details, as well as the name of the assassins and the international accounts in France and Canada through which money was exchanged. Again, if this is a state-level assassination attempt, part of some covert operation headed by the French and Israeli government, there's no money being exchanged. Those assassins would be operating within the interest of their government and their country and serving their country. So was this a private hit or was this a state-run hit? That's really confusing. So let's look at the last tweet. This was the same day. She said, I am told that payments for assassinations are running through the Club de Saint in France. This means there is a paper trail, and I encourage the patriots of France to do what you can to uncover it. I would again like to stress that there was a French female assassin, but also a male Israeli assassin that were selected to kill me. These are joint state operations. Okay, so again, she's saying here this is a state operation, but then also there's payments for the assassinations. So again, which one is it? I'm confused. But again, that's not the issue to hone in on. The issue is that she claims to have figured this entire operation out that involves Israel, again, the country that executed one of the greatest covert operations, which was the pager and the walkie-talkie operation that ended up maiming and taking out hundreds and then thousands of Hezbollah operatives. It was a long-haul operation that took years to execute and was executed perfectly. It was highly discriminant. This is the Mossad that infiltrated the Iranian government by having Mossad female agents marry into top-level Iranian families in order to infiltrate their nuclear program. This is the Mossad, the greatest intelligence agency in the world. Candace Owens thinks that she, singularly, through the help of her email tip line, discovered and then now is foiling the plot against her own life. Got it. And so many of her followers actually believe this, bought into this in order to assassinate Charlie. And okay, so to summarize Candace's argument, Charlie Kirk was assassinated. The reasons are multiple. One, those closest to him wanted to kill him because they wanted to betray him and seize his power and his organization. And Erica Kirk was aware of this. His pastor was involved, his closest friends and inner circle, and Erica knew of the plot. On top of that, different sovereign nations were part of this coordinated assassination attempt, including Israel, France, Egypt, Canada, and the United States, because the FBI was persuaded to create a false narrative in order to distract from the real plot that was taking place, not just against Charlie Kirk's life, but also now Candace Owens' life. This conspiracy goes from the top down in the US government, from the federal to the state and then the municipal level. It also involves 5 sovereign nations. And the reason for the assassination was because Charlie was shifting on the issue of Israel. Egypt was monitoring Erica Kirk for 3 years prior to the assassination attempt without knowing that Charlie was going to shift on the issue of Israel. And the assassination was also used to distract the world and Candace Owens so that she could not reveal the connection between the Macrons and MK Ultra. And that is why the French are involved. If you believe this, I am worried for you and you need help, because the fact that so many people are not able to critically think and look at how illogical this claim is deeply concerning. And the problem is this sort of deranged and illogical conspiracy theory actually detracts from conspiracy theories that are real, like COVID-19, for example. The official narrative that we were fed was a lie. So it's true that governments might mislead the public in order to seize more power, and they propagate official narratives in order to amass support from crowds and to expand their own powers. Yes, corruption is true. Yes, do elites plot and assassinate people? Sure, look at the Clintons. All of those things can be true. But just because we have examples of conspiracy theories being true, such as COVID, or assassinations being used, such as with the Clinton family, doesn't mean then that an illogical conspiracy theory that spans multiple nations and multiple government agencies within the US and multiple levels of governance from the federal to the municipal level is true. The claims Candace has made self-contradict. They cannot all be true. This conspiracy is distracting from the division happening on the right. I think the scariest reality of what this entire Candace Owens crusade has demonstrated is that the right is capable of the same groupthink as the left. And the lack of critical thinking on the right is going to shift the Overton window towards the radical fringes of conservatism. And it's going to take people within the mainstream right speaking out against Candace and Tucker to hold the line and just call out deranged conspiracy, revisionist history, and defamation for what it is. And I will end the episode on that note.